Hi, this is GRC 605, Unit 5 presentation. This is me and Nease, and the title of this presentation is Conducting a chi-square Test of Independence. The goal of this assignment is to practically apply concepts from Unit 5's reading and lectures. This presentation will aim to demonstrate my ability to conduct a chi-square test of independence and to present my findings. The GRC 605 dataset was imported into PSPP to calculate 3 chi-square tests. These 3 tests are the test of independence between num cars and num defaults, the test of independence between lick comfort and num defaults, and the test of independence between num cars and lick comfort. And out of the 3 above tests, we found one that had a significant result. As far as an agenda for today's presentation, we are going to go through tests 1, 2, and 3, and we'll review the findings, including an APA statement and justification of the null and alternative hypothesis. We will also discuss the test of independence results with a focus on the test with a significant result. We will present main takeaways, look at the graphs and charts, and let's save some room for questions. We will apply the following rules as part of this presentation. We will reject the null hypothesis when P is less than alpha, where alpha is 0.05. We also have a failure to reject rule, and we will fail to reject the null hypothesis when P is greater than alpha, where alpha is 0.05. And of note that if we reject the null, then we will follow up with Kramer's V to see what the strength is of the relationship. The first test we will conduct is the test that looks at the correlation between the number of car payments per month and the number of defaults, that's defaults of all types, incurred by the participant. So our null hypothesis is that there is no relationship between the number of car payments per month by the participant and the number of defaults, all types, incurred by the participant, and that there is, the alternative hypothesis is that there is a relationship between the number of car payments per month by the participant and the number of defaults, that's all types, incurred by the participant. The chi-square statistic and its p-value were calculated using PSPP, and they assumed that the alpha is 0.05, also known as the p-value. Our calculations showed that there was no relationship between these 2 variables. As mentioned in the previous slide, the first chi-square test suggested that there is no relationship between the 2 variables. We can see this very clearly in the contingency table produced by PSPP. The p-value is a lot higher than 0.05. It's actually 0.351, so that means we fail to reject the null hypothesis. The chi-square is 6.68. We have 9 degrees of freedom. The Kramer's V is only 0.15, so there's no real relationship to consider. Therefore, the conclusion is that there is no relationship between these 2 variables. The second chi-square test that we conducted is a look at the relationship between lick comfort and num defaults. Our null hypothesis is that there is no relationship between the self-reported comfort level of the participant with the current financial standing, and this was measured using a Likert scale, and the number of defaults incurred by the participant. The alternative hypothesis, therefore, is that there is a relationship between the self-reported comfort level and the number of defaults incurred by the participant. The chi-square statistic and its p-value again were calculated using PSPP, assuming alpha is 0.05. We saw that no relationship emerged between these 2 variables. In this second chi-square test, If we look at the contingency table, we can see that P is a lot bigger than 0.05, therefore we do not see a significant relationship. The P is 0.351, so we will fail to reject the null hypothesis. The chi-square is 6.68, we have 9 degrees of freedom, and the Kramer's V again is very small, so there is no relationship to consider, leading us to conclude that there is no relationship between these two variables. This third chi-square test shows the correlation between the number of car payments per month by the participant and the self-reported comfort level of the participant with their current financial standing. So the null hypothesis is that there is no relationship, whereas the alternative hypothesis is that there is a relationship between the number of car payments per month by the participant and the self-reported comfort level of the participant with their current financial standing. The chi-square statistic and its p-value were calculated using PSPP, assuming an alpha of 0.05. A significant relationship emerged, and you can see the numbers below, and the Kramer's V indicated a perfectly symmetric relationship, which we understand to be quite rare. As seen on the previous slide in the APA format, we can see here the contingency table for this third chi-square test. We can see here that the P is 0, so therefore much less than 0.05, therefore a very significant correlation. The chi-squared is 450, we have 7 degrees of freedom, and the Kramer's V is 1.00, which is again quite rare. This leads us to believe that there is a significant relationship between the two variables, and the Kramer's V indicated a perfectly symmetrical relationship. There are 3 key takeaways from this presentation. One is that PSPP can perform the chi-square test of independence, and we can do this by we could conduct this test by using the Analyze, Descriptive Statistics, and Crosstabs buttons. And we can see why it's very important to obtain a Kramer's V, and that is because that will tell us what the strength of the independent relationship is. I've inserted as an appendix the Kramer's V interpretations, which you can see here. In this case, we had one instance of being very weak in that there is no relationship to consider, and in the third test we saw a perfectly symmetric, which is, you can see in the table, says very rare, call your professor. I don't intend to do that, but anyway. And this is an appendix of the data definitions, so it's clear the variables that we have been analyzing. This has been a presentation by me and Nease. I would like to thank you for your time today and invite you to ask any questions.